Hello and welcome to my podcast. I'm Klaudia Borowiec and I'm here to take you on an exciting journey through various corners of broadly understood art. Let me introduce you to Olivia Chylinski, an interior architect and founder of the Brown Paper Movement Studio, which is specialized in small batch notebooks, calendars, cards and accessories. Olivia has worked in numerous design offices in Denmark, including Henning Larsen and 3XN. On this podcast, we will discuss several topics, such as sustainable business in modern society, Scandinavian design, life in Australia versus Scandinavia, and even more. Hello, Olivia. How are you today in Australia?
I'm good. The weather has been really great. We're in the middle of summer. A little bit of rainy season, but it's hot, so I can't complain. And you?
Yeah, I'm in the middle of a winter. It's February, and in the Northern Faroe Islands is not so good weather today, but it's the perfect time and kind of setting to record podcast with you.
Yeah,
I'm
nice.
Glad you. Yes, and I'm glad you found the time because we have different time zones and we had to kind of synchronize. What time is it at the moment in Australia?
It's 10:30 at night.
Oh my God, it's 11:30 here in the morning. Yeah, we will go straight to the point. I really want to know, how did you come to Denmark? Yes, because you live in Australia, you studied in Australia, you started your business in Australia, and then suddenly you are in Copenhagen.
Yeah. It was 2016. It was around April that I had the idea that I wanted to travel and move overseas. I was living in Sydney, which is where I'm from. And I needed to do something. I needed to mix up my job, being an interior designer, and either travel or move companies. I had also started the business, the Brown Paper Movement, in 2014. So it was 2 years really in its infancy. Nothing was really happening. It was on Etsy. And I decided to move to Copenhagen. A friend of mine suggested it, and I did some research, and I was gone in September. So I arrived in September 2016 with no job and no apartment, no friends, and
just
one
like
friend
this.
of a friend.
Just like this, you just like bought one-way ticket and yep, I'm going to Copenhagen.
Yeah, exactly. And it was a big jump. I mean, it still was a big jump when I look back at it today, but it was something that I really pushed myself. And if it didn't work, I had a backup plan to move to another country. So, but it did work.
Which country?
And I stayed there.
Which country?
To London, because there's a lot of opportunities there.
Yep. Yeah.
But not as exciting as Copenhagen. Sorry.
For sure, you cannot bike there safely.
No, exactly. So Copenhagen it was, and I was there for 5 years. And now I'm back in Sydney recently, but the 5 years was just amazing. I mean, I worked in a lot of different practices. My business grew a lot. I designed notebooks as well, which are yet to be released, as well as the calendars that I've got here. But it was a really long 5 years, and I really missed home. So that's why I moved back actually to Sydney. So we're sort of trying to capture everything in one conversation, that whole timeline of 5 years, right?
Yes, because in Copenhagen, at first place, you were working as an interior architect, right?
Yes.
Like what you were exactly doing, and what have you learned in Denmark during that time?
Working as an interior architect was great. I mean, I spent time in many different practices, doing hotels, doing restaurants, doing office design as well. So there are a lot of differences between Denmark and Australia. The Danes very much rely on the light, and they see the beauty in the changing seasons. In Australia, we have, sometimes people say, only 2 seasons, winter and summer, because it's very extreme, both of them. So there's not this nice, gradual, slow progression. It doesn't feel like it anyway. And people in Denmark are a lot more connected to the earth. the environment, seasons of when they should eat best produce as well.
Yeah.
And it's connected to the interior design so heavily. So a lot of my textures in the business and colors were really inspired by that beautiful light in Denmark that is so different. And that's what's amazing about the paper that I have for the business and that I use, is that it looks different in every light. And I think that that's really special, depending on where you are in the world.
Because the paper you're using, it's a ecological paper. Can I call it this way? Yeah?
Yeah, you can call it a sustainable paper or recycled paper, because, I mean, everyone knows that paper can be recycled, right? Because it comes from the tree. Yes. But some papers have like bleach in them to make them more white. Some have fibers put in them to make them more sustainable. So the paper that I use, this is my gray calendar. This is the first design that I started with, actually. And it has like so many textures in it. It's a little hard to see here, but it has textures. Yeah.
But I will show the pictures of it over video, so the viewers can see exactly the pattern and this beautiful like grains in it, colors.
Exactly.
Yes.
And this paper, it's made from old paper, old newspapers. So it is recycled. It's 100% recycled in the first place to make this. And then, of course, you can recycle it again in the recycling bin, and it would probably be made into new paper. Some of the paper is FSC certified, which is just it comes from a sustainably managed forest. It's quite a common certification to have these days for paper. And then other certifications are EU labels, or some of my paper here has a cotton fibers in it as well.
Okay.
So it's a big mix.
I've noticed that some of your calendars, they have gray color, another one they're more brown. What's the difference in between them? Why they are so different in color?
It depends on the recycled stock that is thrown into the mix. So, and my supplier tells me that too, that sometimes it will be more brown than more gray, just because of the newspaper that they throw in, or it depends, I think, and maybe because of the tree too that it originally came from.
That's really beautiful. That's very beautiful. That every time, actually, the product that your product can look differently because it's just like a natural process.
Exactly, and that's so nice about it, and I think that for me is super special with it. I had a limited edition a paper that I did, which was like a grid paper, which actually I discovered this paper and I bought it from an old bookbinder in Copenhagen, which no longer exists. And I bought it in rolls, and then I cut it up myself and printed it. And this is so beautiful as well.
How did you find that place?
I just walked in. It was next to my work, and I walked in, and I just thought, oh, this. I need to buy all of that. So I did.
Wow, and that's it. Because at the beginning, as far as I remember, you started the business and you did everything by yourself. Like you were designing, of course you're still designing, but you were cutting and also printing out everything and sending also by yourself. Is it still like that, or you're kind of outsourcing some things?
It was like that at the beginning, and definitely up until my second or third year in Denmark, so maybe until 2018. But I literally bought all the paper. I had cut it up into A5 pieces and printed it and sent it everything myself. The binding I outsourced, because I'm a big believer in outsourcing things that you don't need to do. And also, if you can support someone else in their small business, then I really believe in that. So after the business gained its popularity a bit more, I looked for a printer in Copenhagen, a sustainable printer that printed with sustainable inks. And I still work with them today, and they do all the printing now, and they also print my cards too. So for me, that was a very big step to let someone do it all. but it gave me more time to do newsletters and more marketing and the behind the scenes accounting things that people don't see and that is not
Of
so
course,
fun to do.
yes. Yes. Was it hard to find proper, um, can I call it a printing shop?
Printer, yeah, printing shop. It was quite hard. I needed someone who was really interested in it and that would happily do this. You know, it's a continuous collaboration for me. It's not like a one purchase. So it was a little difficult. This contact of mine came recommended, so I hold them very tightly. But they're really good, and it's a small company in Copenhagen.
I remember before we started to record podcast, you mentioned that because your roots are also coming from Poland, and you were trying also to find some suppliers, as far as I remember, or printing shops in Poland, but there were some problems with that.
Yeah, I mean, the printing shops that I did try to find there, I went on a trip to see if I could figure it out with some suppliers that I researched, but they were not pushing the sustainable angle that much, and that for me was a problem. I also wanted to keep it all in a very small radius, so so things were not traveling too far away.
Yes,
and
yes.
that the calendars were produced in Denmark and shipped out of Denmark and packaged in Denmark. So that I still really would like to keep that as much as I can today, and I'm working to try to find someone who can help with logistics because now I'm in Australia. So
Exactly. Yeah, I wanted to ask about it because after you moved back to Australia, what are you going to do at the moment? Will you still keep this connection with Copenhagen's printing shop and find someone in Australia? How are you going to organize that?
it's quite difficult to navigate it because I do think that I would still love to keep my printer in Denmark, and my notebooks are produced in Portugal, so it's also still in Europe. But I would like to keep it there, and keeping logistics there is important. It doesn't make sense to print it there and ship it to Australia for then someone to send it back. You know, a customer, for example. So I will keep that, and I would like to set up another setup in Sydney as well, and find a supplier here who can do the printing and do something for the Asia Pacific market. I think that would be just perfect. It's a bit more of a challenge, but I think it's possible, and I'm slowly getting there. So stay tuned.
Yes, that's your New Year's Eve resolution.
Exactly.
I would like to, Olivia, ask you about your beginnings. Why you picked the name, the Brown Paper Movement? How did it all start?
Yeah, the business started. I was at uni at the time. I was studying interior architecture, and our tutor said to us that if we were to print anything or do any drawings, that we're not allowed to use white paper anymore. And I really remember that being so full on, and thinking, "Oh, how am I going to figure that out?" So I went to an art shop and I found some gray paper, and I printed all of my drawings on that, and it looked so beautiful. And I still love looking at that today. I was working at a candle factory at the time, and I didn't have a calendar. It was about March. So I just quickly put one together on InDesign because I'm a designer and I know how to use those programs. So I put one together, and then I used that myself for a long time. I didn't think anything of it at all. And a friend of mine said, maybe you should start selling them and like see what happens. And I put them on Etsy, and it did take off a little bit. I didn't give a lot of attention to it because I was studying at the time, and I still was in my third year and last year of university. So for me, that wasn't important. But I did give it a shot, and the name, it just came to me after a lot of brainstorming, obviously with having the brown paper with me at the time. And I wanted the name, the brown paper, to be in there somehow without it sounding too cliche, you know?
Yeah.
So that is pretty much the story and the history behind it.
Wow. I think it's very inspiring because, as you mentioned, you started it in 2014, and since then you're developing your business and it's growing, and you moved with it to Copenhagen, and then you're back to Australia now, and it's still like ongoing. I'm also using your products, and I just love them. I love these. I think this is like the basic calendar, the you hang on the wall. I just
Yes.
love them. It's because you can write all your like important exactly, that's my calendar. It's exactly the same color. I just love it.
Oh, thank
So
you.
I really cannot imagine using different one at the moment. I think it's because it's very stylish, it's very practical. I think as a designers, we kind of we are very picky in terms of design, and also we use calendars slightly different. We make notes slightly different. So I think it's really practical, and I just love it.
Well, thank you so much.
I would like to, Olivia, ask you also about interior architecture. How does this area influence your business?
The interior architecture definitely influences it in a big way. For me, I don't see the business from my career different. I see them as together. The textures used in design, the fabrics, the leathers, the bricks, the paints, all of that combined for me is an inspiration for which paper I can use next. And the feeling of the paper, the texture of it, and how it visually looks as a beautiful object in space. That is quite critical, that the two of them have a synergy together and that they are inspired by each other. For my day-to-day use with work, I like to use the notebooks that I've designed that I know have been very slow to the market, but they're coming, I promise. I've designed a few for different clients, and I have them here. Wow. And then my own one is coming. So they are slowly getting there.
Can you show them inside? I'm very curious how this
I can. So this one here I designed for August Sandgren. They are a Danish company, and they wanted a lined notebook that lies completely flat, which is so beautiful to use. And when you're writing on the left side and the right side, they lie completely flat. It has a beautiful binding inside. Let me just open up the front page. It has really nice spiral binding. And this is made by a local small manufacturer and print shop in Portugal. And they're run by a beautiful family. So that's in really old generations passed down. So that is the notebook, actually. But they do. My career definitely inspires it, and I see them together.
What kind of colors of the notebooks are available?
It's a bit hard to see. Yeah, I mean these three were for clients. Those three, and this last one at the back is a sneak peek of my one that I will have. But these colors, they will probably inspire what I will have for the collection of notebooks that I will do. They might come in a set of three, so you get three different colors. And they will all be the same thickness. Right now, they're slightly different, and they will obviously all lie flat. But these are the samples that I made for clients. The black one is really beautiful. I made this for a tech company. It's matte black, and it's lovely. And they had their logo inside as well on the front. So
yes.
It's beautiful, that one. So you have to wait and see.
Yeah, when they will be available online.
I think
yeah.
It's hard because everything is in a crisis right now with this COVID. So I'm waiting for stock, and I need to make sure it comes to Australia in the most sustainable way.
Yes.
So I will have a small amount of stock, but probably by the middle of the year, I think. Hopefully sooner. It will come sooner.
Are these notebooks made also 100% recycled paper?
They are FSC certified, and the interior paper is one of the highest ratings in paper. So with the FSC and EU label as well, and the company also offsets their carbon emissions as well, and yeah, they're quite good.
Oh, they are really beautiful. I saw on your Instagram that you have some kind of notebooks with a leather finishing, leather cover. Is it the same
Leather
product?
cover. It's a product by August Sandgren, and that's where the one that I designed for them goes into the leather cover.
Okay.
So actually, you can purchase the leather cover from them, and there's a link on my website for that too. But the leather cover is amazing. It's leather that is upcycled. That would have been used for furniture, and it's the offcuts of that. So it's not. It is new leather in a way, but it's been upcycled. So the notebooks slide inside a cover, and you can have that forever. I mean, the leather cover is so beautiful, and it's a custom color matched with the paper. So.
That sounds really amazing. I can't wait for these notebooks to be available. I want to also know how is it to have sustainable business in modern society, Olivia? How do you manage that? Because you mentioned about your attitude towards sustainability, and also you mentioned about your business that it's very important for you to have recycled paper at first. How is it to have that?
Yeah, it's at the beginning I was quite new in the market with it, but now it's tough because a lot of people are doing sustainable products as well. Like I said, the FSC certified is really standard certification these days, and you usually don't buy anything without that. But in terms of maintaining that sustainability, it is about making sure that if we ship anything, we offset the emissions. If we use any packaging, that there's no plastic. We've just transitioned the final stage of our plastic bags, which I found it more important to use them than to throw them away, the ones that I ordered many years ago. We just phased out of that into cellulose bags that biodegrade as well in the compost. So it's important to be able to navigate the business so that it's sustainable from start to finish, that the companies that I work with, even if they have a fair pay for their employees as well, and asking all of those very difficult questions that people don't want to ask when they're trying to find a supplier.
Okay, like what kind of questions about
like the fair pay, for example, or asking about if they print with sustainable ink. That's not every printer does that these days, so that is also hard to find.
What is that sustainable ink? I've never been thinking about it, like about sustainable ink. I was thinking ink is just an ink and that's it.
But the ink is, usually ink is made from chemicals, right?
Yes,
so a lot of inks in our pens and things like that are from that. But you can get soy inks these days that have a soy base as well. And yeah, that's as much as I know about it as well, actually. Just the soy ink part.
That's something actually to think about, because when I need to print out something, I just go to printing shop or print out by myself, and I don't really think about how is it made. And I just thought that
it's an easy one to forget.
Exactly.
So
yes, I've never been even thinking there is an option like that. Of course, I knew I was introduced to recycled paper very early in my life, but I didn't think about other parts of that. How also the transport is very important. To
export far. Yeah, I would agree, because Yeah, I don't plan to buy packaging, for example, from Europe if I'm in Australia. That doesn't make any sense to me. So, and that's why a lot of Australian businesses import from China. So, because it is one of the leading producers of a lot of packaging. So, it's trying to keep it small and keep it narrow. I have a lot of packaging that's in my shipping container that's still coming. So, so because I pre-purchased that, but once it runs out, I need to find someone else. So in Australia.
Do you think your designs will change since you moved to Australia?
I don't think so. I don't know. I think I need to do some more designs. I have a really nice A3 and A2 design wall calendar, actually, that I've got some samples of. So I would like to just expand the range a little bit and keep the designs, because I think that they're quite classic and people do come back to them every year because they do agree that they're also classic. So, yeah, maybe the colors for the Australian market might shift a little bit. Let's see what's available.
Is it because of the material and the paper which is available, or it's more because of Australian taste?
I think it's the paper.
I don't know if you say it in English taste. We say it like that in Polish, like preferences.
It is taste.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is taste. I think, no, it's more with the paper availability. If I can get it here, then great. But if I can't, then I need to pick something else that works. So.
I'm now very intrigued by that's what you mentioned, that you have to make a design of a notebook or a new calendar. But how do you do it? It's like, how do you design the new notebook? You have to think about so many details. Like, it's not the same as thinking about interior. It's you're working with an object and something like people will use it differently. And how do you think about that while designing?
With the notebook, for me, I've always used really bad notebooks. So a notebook that didn't go flat,
That's annoying.
Exactly, and ones that were not classic and very simple. The notebooks that I have are not branded heavily at all. It doesn't have a heavy graphic. It relies on the beauty of the paper and the color of the paper to really just have that presence. So that inspiration of the paper comes first sometimes, and then I think, oh, how can I use this in a way? And that was how it started with the grey paper. But with the notebook, it is everything that I couldn't find in a notebook that I wanted, and that's really how it does start. And how can I make it look different from all the other notebooks out there on the market? Is the other thing, and looking at graphics and making sure that they align with what I have in the business right now. And sometimes having to rework what I'm doing and readjust tiny things in the calendars that people don't see so that it aligns nicely with everything else.
Wow. So. And when you design a product like that, do you have to make... not the preview, but samples, exactly. You have to work with the manufacturer pretty close.
It is like that a lot, and that's why the notebooks have taken so long, because the sample, it's a small company, right? So they don't just mass produce either, and their passion is in paper. So every time I have a new product, I have to have a sample done, even though I might 100% believe it's going to be fine. We need to test how the printer is going to work, the capability of the team and all of that, and see the quality of it and if it really meets the mark. And I use the notebooks myself, so I test them and see how much they bend and if they get scuffed or anything like that. But a sample is definitely critical. It just takes a bit longer to get the right one.
Mm-hmm. I wonder, because you mentioned that you're working on notebooks, but are you going to have also something for artists that they can sketch on? Because the notebooks, they have lines, but how about something for artists? Because personally, I don't know if you know that brand, I use ArchiTools. I like this simple calendar note, and there is like a part with blank pages on the back side, and Also, I kind of like the way they're finishing the notebook, and also it lies flat. So I really
Yeah,
appreciate all
exactly.
things you said that your notebook will have. And are you
Yes,
going to have something like that for people like
I
me?
will. Yeah. I will. I mean, the notebooks that I designed for the architectural practice, actually, they had 3 designs inside that I did for them. One of them was blank. The other was with a dot grid for architects, and one was with 2 lines. So actually, both, all of those options are totally possible, and I would love to be able to offer that too.
Olivia, let's get back to Denmark again because I'm very interested. I'm living in Faroe Islands in the north, and Denmark is pretty close. And I just really want to know, how did you spend your free time in Denmark? Because that's for sure slightly different than how your life looked like in Australia.
Definitely. I mean, it's such an opposite,
Yes.
living in Copenhagen versus living in Sydney. We didn't have a car in Copenhagen, and everything is by bike,
Mhm.
which is so nice. It's such a different way to do life, really, because you're with the senses all the time. You are either in the sun, in the rain, in the snow, and your body reacts with that, and you have an emotion with that too. So we used a lot of our free time to bike around and explore parts of the city and parts of the country as well with friends. And other spare time was with the business, because the lifestyle and work-life balance in Denmark versus Australia is so different. Back in when I left in 2016, anyway, people were leaving work here, being interior designers, interior architects at around 5:36, maybe sometimes later. And in Denmark, you would leave at 4:30, but still start at 9. So I had a lot of time after work in Denmark to really grow the business and nurture it as well, and then also make, of course, friends and have a lifestyle there too. But a lot of the time in the initial days went to the business and keeping fit as well and eating healthy, so and traveling. So that was my favorite ways to spend the time, and eating lots of pastries and trying to work it off on the bike.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I was reading some statistics, and actually, Denmark is one of the top of, I think, European countries in the category of eating sweets and candies, consuming
Yeah.
sugar. And for me, it's really shocking because they are so fit. Maybe because of biking.
Because of the biking. I mean, in here, I'm just like struggling, and maybe I don't know if I'm a bit big or not. But I'm sitting here thinking, I just want to keep eating pastries, and I can't, because I will have to go for a bike ride.
Yeah.
So, and when I first moved to Denmark, it was so, like, I felt so much pain in my legs, and I was thinking, look, I'm fit. I'm kind of fit. I had just come from a holiday, and when I left Australia, I was quite fit. And I just knew that my legs, the pain was from bike riding, because I had never
Yeah.
used those muscles before. So, eat a croissant and then bike.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. This is how you keep balance.
exactly,
You have to
and
be
they're
more.
very happy.
Yes, and are there places to bike in Australia, like in the city?
There are, look,
Yeah.
there are. It's not as safe to bike here,
Mhm.
definitely not. But there are some bike lanes, and they are quite nice in Sydney. So I'm really looking forward to getting out there and exploring them a little bit. We need to buy a bike as well,
Oh,
and
yeah.
just get into it.
But for
We got
sure,
a car before
yeah.
we got a bike.
This is what I
Yeah.
wanted to ask. Probably you bought a car already.
We had to, to get around. It's not impossible. I do think the bus is definitely
Yeah,
available,
yeah,
but to get around to see friends and family, it was
yeah,
just
yeah.
important to have.
And it's just
So
easier, right?
yeah, it is easier, and I mean, we will as we go into work, we will start to just catch public transport. So it's not something we will actually be using every day anyway.
Yes. Yeah. How about because you mentioned about these differences in lifestyle in Denmark versus Australia? How about the interior? We all know, of course, Scandinavian design, but Can you, for example, introduce something like that or find something like that in Australia or something Australian in Scandinavian design, or they are two different categories?
Worlds.
Yeah, worlds, exactly.
I mean, the thing is, like, I really found that when I moved to Denmark, interior design or interior architecture was always there. It was always part of the architecture. The architects always did it. It wasn't its outright own name. It definitely wasn't its own title before. And in Australia, interior design has been around for more than 20 years. And I really feel that in Denmark, they only just recently started in the last 10 years to teach like spatial design. That's how they call it. And of course, we know, as you say, the Scandinavian design is so beautiful and the interiors are like that. And that's really, it started with the architects, and there's no one to blame there because it's just a title actually at the end of the day. But it's interesting to see that interior design had such strong roots and a history in Australia in that way. Also, that started with architects too. It didn't just like come out of nowhere. It did start with the architects and sort of formed. But here, it's a much more respected title, and people have amazing studios here, and they're so inspiring. There's definitely a lot more than there are in Denmark, just because of the size of the country. But yeah, in Denmark, more and more in the last 5 years, I've seen a lot more companies starting up that are just interior designers. And that's really nice to see, actually, because it means that it's gaining popularity in its own way. It's they're trying to break a little bit away from the architecture, which is nice, but still have the underpinning. So that's how I see the differences are between the two. So yeah, I did consider studying architecture at one point, and I thought, no, I need to stick to what I love, and in being interiors, and that was fine. I think so. Yeah,
because as an interior architect, when you were working in Denmark, probably you were mostly like as you mentioned, like the being interior architect is like finding the studios is like dedicated only interior architecture is pretty hard, but definitely there are many big architectural companies. Whoops, again, there are many big architectural companies which have the department, interior design department. So is it like most of your jobs you had in Denmark, they were connected probably with these big firms?
Companies.
Companies.
It was like that, and it still is like that in Australia too. There's of course interior companies only, but there is a lot of companies that have architects with an interior department. There's not that many architects within an interior department of a big size, over 100 people in Denmark. There's probably under 5, actually. So that's really interesting, because when I tried to get into the market in 2016, there were not many interior studios. There was like 3 or 4 that I really, wanted to apply to and get into. And then, yes, again, like 3 or 4 of the big ones as well. But that's still not that many for a pool that you're used to coming from, like a really big quantity. So it was definitely a challenge. But I've worked in a lot of companies, so it's been really nice to get a good sweep across all of them.
And because we are soon finishing our podcast, I want to ask you the last question. What have you learned from Danish culture, from Denmark, Danish people? What do you take with you? What are you taking with you to Australia from Europe?
From there, I think for me, a few people have asked me this, but I think it's about just taking it slow, because in Denmark, they really appreciate, like I was saying before, they appreciate the seasons and the time. They really spend a lot of effort to make something right and perfect. And I'm not to say that doesn't happen elsewhere, but I really learned to have a slower pace because of the work-life balance in Denmark. It's amazing that you can have the capacity to slow down and just be present and mindful in it. So taking it slow is what I really learned from there, and just to be good at saying no to things and saying yes to the things you want to do, and just pacing your life like that, and always remembering to stay connected and grounded to the earth and keep sustainable, because all of that will make you happy as well. If you can be grounded, you'll be happier in your relationships, in your diet, in the seasons and all of that. So that I don't want to lose. I don't want to come back here and just sit in an air-conditioned, box and that's it. In Denmark, it's not like that. So I'm really looking forward to having continuing that slower pace as I had in Copenhagen.
Yes, and I wish you to continue that slower pace and this work-life balance in Australia. And I'm waiting for your new notebooks. I will definitely get one for myself because I love your products. And
thank you so much.
Yes.
It's so nice to be able to talk to somebody about the business now, and it's been some time, and I haven't had any podcasts or interviews, so this is really nice. Yes. So thank you, Klaudia.
It was really nice to talk to you. Bye-bye, Olivia. Thank you.
See you.
Bye. Thank you for listening to my podcast. If you're a Polish speaker, Olivia and I recorded another episode in Polish, which is now available on my Spotify and YouTube channels. In addition, there is a big chance that if you're listening to this podcast in February 2022 on YouTube, you'll become my second subscriber. I probably don't need to mention that the first subscriber is a very close friend of mine. Thank you once again. Bye-bye.